Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 5 of the Emo Entrepreneur, the podcast where I talk about all the emotional shit with running your business. And today I am so excited to have another guest on. This is Laticia Kristine. She is running the Instagram page, Scandalous Esthetician, and she also runs a holistic in Idaho, no filter aesthetics. So welcome, Laticia. I am
Thank
so excited
you.
to have you on today and to really get the conversation going about ethical aesthetics and how important it is in the industry. So I would love for you to kind of introduce yourself, how long you've been in the industry, and kind of what brought you to where you are today.
Oh, what a journey. So I became an esthetician. I went to school in 2010. I have been in the industry since 2008. So I started while I was in high school working at a local salon up in my tiny little mountain town. And when I say tiny, I mean I literally graduated with 17 other people, and I was related to half of them, like very small town. And so I started working at this little salon, and I just loved it. I loved selling the hair products to people when they would come to get their hair done. Like, I just really loved the environment. I had worked in restaurants. I had worked at a coffee shop. I had done all of the miscellaneous odd jobs that you can do between 14 and 19. Like, I had done them.
Yes.
And I was like, no, I really like being in the salon. Like, I love the energy. I love the people. I loved everything about it. So when I graduated, I moved down to the city that I live now, well, the Treasure Valley. And I got a job at a corporate spa. And I was killing it. I was their top sales associate for the 11 months that I was there before I got fired for bringing other people to work. And that was, at the time, I was planning on going to school for aesthetics because I knew I had dropped out of college. I knew I needed to do something with my life. I was a 4.0 student. Like, I had potential. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And I didn't want to go into debt not knowing what I wanted to do. So I dropped out of college. I was working that corporate spa job for a few more months before I got let go. And as I was getting let go, I was getting ready to start school. And so it worked out like very serendipitously, I would say, where it was just the perfect storm because I was able to collect unemployment because I was fired for no real good reason. And I was able to go to school and then just work this one tiny little part-time job at a mall kiosk. And I was able to just be in school full-time and be able to focus on that. So it really was a blessing in disguise when it happened. And from there, I got married and had a baby, and I was very young. And then in about 2012, 13, I had been licensed for 2 years, but hadn't been working in the industry. And my ex-husband and I were stationed down in California. And I decided to start taking my career really seriously. And so I invested in a ton of continuing education for makeup because that's why I wanted to go to school to be an esthetician to begin with. And I don't know how your schooling was or when you went to school, but back when I was going to school, they didn't teach anything, like absolutely nothing about makeup. We were supposed to have the option to do a MAC makeup course or a mud makeup course, one of the two. And I was super excited about that. But then our class never got offered that additional class.
Wow. One day I went to an Aveda school, and so it was like Aveda makeup.
Yeah.
And it was just like one day of watching some makeup tutorials and having somebody come in from the cosmetology program and just apply it on one of the girls. And that was it. I'm like, what?
Yeah. So I didn't learn
not much.
Anything I wanted to learn while I was in school. So when I got down to California, I really invested in my continuing education. And I took all of these classes from Temp2 and learned how to airbrush makeup with the best of them. I was trained by their global educator at the time and started working pretty closely with her. And I landed a jewelry campaign that was published in Harper's Bazaar UK. And then my husband got orders for North Carolina. And as I'm like driving across the country, my mentor Tracy calls me and she's like, I just got done doing 3 days of Ariana Grande's body makeup for the VMAs. I really could have used your help. And I was just like, you can't say things like that to me while I'm driving across the country. Click. It was so traumatic for me because I was just getting started and I was starting to make connections, and then we had to move, and it just really sucked. But when I got to North Carolina, I told my ex-husband, I was like, I want a studio in our house. So we ended up getting a 4-bedroom house, and the upstairs was like what I considered my studio. It had a separate bathroom. So you had to walk into our foyer, but then you would just go directly upstairs into my little home studio. It wasn't regulation. I was definitely doing it illegally, but I didn't care because I was just doing makeup.
Yeah.
So I was doing makeup, and I was doing makeup for balls and for photo shoots, boudoir shoots, homecomings, really military life involved. And I started offering brow waxing because I had taken a class from Anastasia Beverly Hills while I lived in LA. And I went to one of her workshops and was able to learn the brow shape, like the golden ratio and the brow shaping method and all of that kind of stuff. And so I started specializing in brow waxing while I was in North Carolina. And then my business, so it was like this little like home-based business, and I wasn't really doing much with it, but just enough. And I decided to go all in on weddings. I was like, I'm going to build a wedding business. I'm going to do hair and makeup for weddings and events, and that's going to be my thing. And so I did. I started building my business. And then I got recruited to work at a local spa by the esthetician who was leaving. She was going to be moving up to DC, and they needed someone to take her place. And she had been seeing what I was doing on Facebook and Instagram. And she was like, I really want you to meet my boss. I think you'd be a great fit. Will you come and do an interview? And I was like, I mean, I don't know. I'm making pretty good money on my own. Like, I don't think I need to. And I was like I wasn't inherently cocky and snotty, but like I think back about some of like my actions and how I act, and I'm just like, you were so full of yourself with also being filled with insecurity. Like, how did you pull that off? So like Delulu Land is where I've lived my whole life apparently.
That population B.
Yeah. So I took the interview, and she's my spa mom. I still call her to this day. And she was like, so what do you want? And I was like, well, I mean, I'm making pretty good money for myself. So I think like 50% commission on all services and like 20% on product, and I could come and work for you. And she was like, okay. Now owning my own business, I'm like, what were you thinking? Like, you were not even making money on me. She was just like, I just want to keep my clients happy. And that's really what it was for her. She just wanted to keep her clients happy. And so she did. She brought me in and gave me what I asked for, and it was incredible. Now, I was 1099, which also worked to my advantage, and I know how illegal that is now.
Right.
And even at the time, I knew that being 1099 wasn't necessarily how it was supposed to be, but it worked out really well for me because I did have business expenses I could write off outside of what I was doing in her business. Yes, I was still having to pay on that, but it just like I also had a son. I was a single mom, and she was trying to do it to help me as well. And it just like, for me, my situation wasn't the ugly beauty business side of
she wasn't trying to screw you over.
You know? Yeah. So it was super beneficial, and I started to fall in love with skin because I had to do all of this continuing education and basically like retrain myself on how to be an esthetician because I had passed my state boards years ago at this point and never done a facial really since.
Yeah.
So I got into that treatment room and I just absorbed everything. And I went to every class that I could, and I learned everything I could about the product lines. And then I just became a chemist because there was so much in that back bar that she didn't even know was in there. And I was like, well, I'm going to create a facial. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And she just kind of let me do what I wanted. And having that creative freedom in the treatment room, I think really blossomed the type of esthetician that I wanted to become, what I did, how I would incorporate different things. Like I started doing microdermabrasions with light enzyme chemical peels at the same time long before dermaplaning with an enzyme came into the picture. So, and then I had to beg her. I had to beg and beg and beg. I was like, please let me learn how to dermaplane. Please. I know our clients will love it. And she's just like,
Yeah.
no. And I was like, please, please, please. And finally I did. I was able to get her to let me go and do that and take the class. And it was fantastic. We brought it in. Obviously, dermaplaning has taken off since then, but that was kind of the beginning. And then I went through my divorce while I was at that job. And that's kind of the reason that I took it. And then I also went through a really nasty breakup. Not nasty. It wasn't a nasty breakup. It just like broke me and my soul. That kind of nasty. With my ex-fiance. And when we broke up, I called my ex-husband and I was like, hey, do you still want to move back to Idaho? And he was like, that's what the paperwork says, isn't it? And I was like, okay. Yes, it is, but is that what you still want? Because I'm trying to figure it out with you. And so we went to coffee and we decided we did want to move back home because we're both from here. And I decided before I left, I was going to go to the bank and I was going to get a loan. And I fibbed my little tail off and I told them that I was going to be buying the room that I was already working in, even though I was 1099. And I was like, well, I was 1099 on 50% commission. So this is how much I made. And this is how much I'm projected to make this year if you let me buy this room. And I asked for $20,000. And I had babied my credit since I was 16. And so they just like signed, sealed, delivered. And I had $20,000 of Monopoly money sitting in my account the next day. And I was like, what just happened?
Like, I can't believe they gave that to me.
Honestly, that's how it felt. So I called my aunt and I was like, what if I fail? What if I have to declare bankruptcy? And my Nana was like, first of all, I've declared bankruptcy. And second of all, you can buy a house in 2 years with a regular job. You'll be fine.
Yeah,
She's like, that's the worst that you're worried about. Like, you're going to be fine. And I was like, oh, okay, I can do that. She was like, just talk through the failure. She was like, what does it look like if you fail? And I was like, I'll have to declare bankruptcy. Well, then what? I would have to get a job. Oh, look at you. You already have one of those. So you know how to do that. Like, it was just very much. Yeah. It was just very talk through your failure. And once I did that, I was like, oh, it's not so bad. Like, I would get a job. I've had plenty of those. Like,
yeah. Oh no.
So, yeah. I'm like, I'm probably more qualified now than I ever have been in my entire life to have a job. So, so that was the beginning, and that was 2017. And I say that was the beginning, even though that was like 7 years of my life. It was. And so when I took out that loan, I moved back to Idaho and I started my business as a solo esthetician in the treatment room. And so for me, that's the beginning of my business, is like when I took out the loan. Right. And then the business changed like 3 times pretty rapidly between 2017 and 2020. So I was Hugh Lala Esthetics and I was a solo practitioner. And then within a year, I had gotten myself knocked up with my tequila baby, who I love so much. And heartbreak will do the damn thing, let me tell you. So I was pregnant with him. I had him. I was working solo, and that's when I found the space that I'm currently in. And it's got 4 private rooms, and then it had like open space for like reception area. And it fell into my lap. And honestly, I just say it was God's plan the whole time, because there was a daycare right behind me, like literally in the building, a sidewalk. Everything worked out for me, not like everything happened for me, not to me. I truly, truly, truly believe that sentiment at this point. And I just remember pretending I was like the CEO of some high-rise company with like an on-site daycare, and I was going to like visit my baby, and I would just like pretend that was my life. And it worked really well for me because that was my life. Like, I was the CEO of my own tiny little company, and I did have a daycare on site. And so it was just like this really beautiful mixture of things coming together. And I had renters for that first year. And I remember complaining nonstop to my friends about having renters, because I would be out hustling, putting the business's name out there because I had changed the business name to 208 Beauty Co. I was still Hugh Lala Aesthetics, but I was just like private in my room, and then I had renters in the other rooms, and the business was 208 Beauty Co. That all happened, and in 2019, about 2 weeks before my rent was due, all of my renters gave notice and decided to leave because a new Phoenix Salon Suites was opening up. And so they were going to go work out of there. And I was like, okay. And I had just
Now it's all on me again. Awesome.
and I had just refinanced my business loan, and the baby was like 8 months old. And I was like, okay, we're finally like in a good spot. Rent speed, like everything's smooth now. Like I'm going to be able to pay off this debt and like everything's good. No. So I took the capital that I got from refinancing my business loan, and I put it into hiring my first employees and bringing on DMK and kind of setting myself up to have the skincare clinic that I had been dreaming of. And that's how it really started. And then by the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, I had known I wanted to rebrand the entire time, and the name finally hit me. And that day I was searching trademarks and the USPTO, and I was checking for website handles and Instagram handles and all of the things, and nobody had anything named No Filter. Like there was nothing at the time. And so I was like, done. That's my name. And I named the clinic No Filter Aesthetics, and the rest is history.
I love that. I love how just resilient you are to all of your life's challenges, even though the universe has like also helped you along the way. It's like, oh, we're doing a little too well. Time to turn this upside down and
feels like that sometimes, for sure.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I also crazy that there was nothing with like No Filter Aesthetics. You would think like, I don't know. I think you were ahead of your time for sure.
I was on purpose. Yes. I was like, this is genius. And I took it, and I literally changed everything. Like that day I was like securing handles and web domains and buying everything. And I called, like, I mean, I figured out what the name was going to be. And I was like on the phone with the tax commission being like, how do I keep my EIN and change my business name? And they're like, we don't know if you can do that. And I was like, okay, but I'm not changing the entity structure. I've already Googled a lot of things, and I just need to know how to do it. Like,
yeah, you're like, just the name. Just the name.
I just need the name. And I didn't want to lose all of my business credit in the transition. So it was.
Right.
Yeah.
I also, that's crazy. When I first, I think it was the end of my first year that I had my business, I ended up taking out a loan so that I could bring on DMK as well. Because I was just so enamored with really their education. I thought was
it's
just
unparalleled.
Absolutely top tier, and just the way that they run their business is so unlike so many other skincare brands out there. And I loved the kind of exclusivity of it, and it showed that they really cared about keeping the esthetician at the forefront of the business and protecting us and making sure like you can't buy these products off of Amazon. Like you very much have to go see your skin revision therapist or your paramedical therapist, whatever level you're on with them. And that's another thing that I love too, is that they have their tiered levels. If you want to get really advanced with it, you're able to do so, and they have advanced protocols and all of these things. And it's such a, I don't know, people definitely have their qualms with DMK.
I think people they either know and understand the line, the brand, and the concept, or they see it from the outside and they don't understand and they don't agree with it. And I'm like, it's mostly because you don't understand.
Because I feel like all of us that are DMK therapists, like we are so full throttle for them, because it really is such a understanding on both parties, like what they're doing, everything.
Yeah, and I think it really is a full concept. So it's not something that you can just see from the outside. Like, you can't just take the webinar and be like, oh, okay, I understand now. It's like,
Yes.
no, you've just barely scratched the surface of like what this all actually means. And not in a bad way. It's just, you don't know what you don't know until you know it. And you can judge other estheticians for carrying a brand or not carrying a brand all you want to. That's not my place. Like, that's not why I'm here. That's not why I'm doing what I'm doing. I think it really just comes down to, you have to figure out, as an esthetician and a business owner, what are your core values and what aligns with those values. If you are a greenwashed, clean skincare girly, then like, own it, be that, do that, sell that. I love it for you. It's not for me, but like, do you?
Yep.
If you are a paramedical MD skin revision therapist, then like, great, do that, sell that, believe in that. As long as your anecdotal evidence supports what you are doing. And yes, we can believe science, quote unquote. Science makes me a little angry because I'm like, the science is there, but the science is also always subject to change. That's what science is.
Yes.
And people are like, well, the science. And I'm like, the science used to say that smoking was good for you. Do you want to keep that way?
It's continuously changing, always. As
well,
we
and
learn
it's
more.
Also who's paying for the science.
Yes, who's
follow
it
the money.
by? Who
Always, you have to follow the money.
Yep, every single time. Yeah, they really are at the forefront of everything that I think the aesthetics world should want to kind of be in. But I don't just work with DMK either. I have Face Reality. When I first started, I just used Skin Script because at the time that was all I could afford. They didn't have any opening orders. They do have really great education too. And so I was drawn to that and kind of like the no frills. I don't know. I feel like I'm such a packaging nerd that I'm like, I feel like I can tell when brands like go a little too over the top with their packaging and it's trying to like overcompensate for the fact that the product itself is not that great. So
I'm a packaging whore, so I'm sorry.
Yes.
Give me the $2 cleanser in the $20 bottle. Like, I don't care. Like,
and like I love, like, as a consumer, I love really good packaging, but then like as a professional, I'm like, oh, I love the like no frills type of look for some reason, which is so crazy because I'm so like outrageous and outlandish and bright, but everything I sell is like on my shelves. It's just so plain and boring, which is so funny to me. But I'm so curious to know, like, from being in your field aesthetics, like what brought you to kind of make your Instagram presence for your Scandalous Esthetician page? Like, did it start as something else, or was there kind of like, I don't know, like a turning point moment for you while you were working that you were like, I need to speak up about this, like something isn't right, or maybe some kind of like quote unquote drama that you maybe had found? Like what was the turning point for you to kind of also go down the Scandalous Esthetician route as well?
So that page has been through a couple of metamorphoses. So in 2017, when I moved back to Idaho, that was my original business page. And I have like an archived 300 follower personal Instagram account. That was my first Instagram that I ever started. And when I started No Filter Aesthetics, I started that. Well, let me back up. I'm sorry. When I started 208 Beauty Co., I started a separate Instagram. And that is where I started putting all of my business focus, was on that Instagram. And everything that already existed, all of my old makeup clients from North Carolina, things like that, were following this other page. So I just went through and I archived everything. And I was like, I'm going to start this over as like, I knew that the evolution of branding and the evolution of our culture and just where we were headed was like, everyone's going to have a personal brand. Like by 2050, everyone will be a personal brand. It'll be, how are you utilizing that to your advantage? It's kind of like how I saw it in my head. And for me, that page, so I changed the name to just my name, Laticia Kristine, and I kept it very, like, it was basically like my live journal. Like, if you go back and you read any of my old posts before, like, 2 weeks ago, most of the captions are, I don't want to say thought-provoking. They are to me because they're my thoughts, but, like, they are reflectionary. Like, they're typically they're letters to me, like younger versions of me. Yeah. So I'll be thinking about something and then I'm like, oh, I need to type this out. And it just became my live journal in some type of way. And then about, I would say about a year ago, I was like, okay, I put the hashtag Boise Bougie Bitch, and I was like, I'm going to be a local influencer. That's what I'm going to do. Like, what point does this page serve if I'm not doing anything with it other than just like showing pictures of my family and my kids?
Yeah.
And my wife and I were going out a lot, so I would feature local businesses here and there, but I didn't have any type of passion for, like, not to say that being a community influencer isn't a big deal or a good thing, because it 100% is, and it makes a huge impact. But it wasn't my thing. Like, I didn't have this passion for, like, going to small business at, like, all of the coffee shops in town and being like, your top 10 coffee shops in Boise, Idaho. Like, it wasn't like so it kind of hit me at some point, the name the Scandalous Esthetician. And I was like, oh, that's fucking good. Like, that's a good name. That is a good name. And how fitting that the Scandalous Esthetician owns No Filter Aesthetics. Like, it was just kind of a play. And I was like, oh, that's clever. I like it. So I changed my handle. I did a photo shoot and I was like, something is coming. I had no fucking clue what it was. I was just like, I changed the name. I did the photo shoot. I announced the brand. I keep waiting with me, I guess. And people would be DMing me like, oh my gosh, I'm watching. What are you doing next? Is it a podcast? Is it this? Is it that? And I'm like, I don't know, guys. I don't know. Like, I'm going to figure it out. I'll figure it out. And I'm also dealing with my business and everything that it's going through. And so this was just kind of like a side hustle project that I was going to get to eventually. And I think the trigger point was really the BioRe scandal. I decided, I mean, I've done a few podcasts and that's been fun. I actually love doing podcasts. It's probably what I should be doing. I love it so much. But I decided when the BioRe scandal was like really coming to light, my friend Athena and I had been talking about it behind the scenes for a really long time. We had connected when she was going through all of her trademark stuff, and I had reached out to her and been like, hey, I'm hearing some pretty nasty rumors about you. Like, would you care to clarify? Like, off the record, I just, like, this is what I'm hearing, and I'm curious your side of the story. And so we ended up talking and just Instagram friends back and forth, and we talked about BioRe and a few other things. And so when that BioRe warning page went up, I was like, I feel like the Scandalous Esthetician should talk about this. Like, this should be what I'm talking about. But I also wanted to, I didn't want to do it how I see other people are doing it. And I think that was my biggest hang up with this page is I was like, okay, I've got a really great name. And part of my reason for changing my name was also selfish motives. I wanted more estheticians to follow me because I was like, I'm going to be a business coach and I need to get them to follow me. So when I'm commenting on other people's stuff, I need it to not just be my name. Like, if I'm answering a question that a client is asking on the Dallas Estheticians page, I want people to click on my profile, see who I am, and follow me, not just think I'm some random person. And so that was another reason that I changed my name. I didn't want estheticians to follow my No Filter page. I wanted them to follow my Scandalous Esthetician page, where I could talk about business, where I could talk about ethics, where I could talk about brands and things like that. And also just like help solo estheticians because I've been there, done that. I'm 500,000 steps in front of a lot of solo estheticians. And it's like, I have so much value I can add to their businesses without even having to charge for it. Just like little tidbits that I can help with.
Absolutely.
And so that was another motivation behind it, was like, I want to be a personal brand. And that was another reason that I changed it. I also just didn't want estheticians following my no filter page, because I've built a local following on that page, and I don't want the algorithm to think that estheticians are who it needs to target.
Right. It's like, this one's for clients. This one is for peers.
Exactly. And that's where a lot of estheticians, I feel like, do both. I didn't want to do both, because my brick and mortar runs perfectly the way that I run it, and I didn't want to convolute that at all. So yeah, the BioRe scandal hit, and I just texted Athena and I was like, hey, do you want to go live and talk about this with me? Like, I just want to talk about it, and I can't talk about it by myself. I'll look stupid. So
yeah, and that's why I found you too. I had one of my esthetician friends had sent me that live video, and I was like, oh my God, I found my people, you know? And I was just really enamored with the way that both of you were able to talk about things in such a way that I find that a lot of other estheticians don't. And also, like, coming from, as much of an unbiased perspective as possible, I think is so important too. And also, being able to speak with, like, as somebody, because you had never brought it on, right? You never.
I did. So Athena never brought it on. I did bring it on. Yeah. I ordered a box of the gold and the blue, and we went through our box. Maybe I ordered twice. I think maybe I did order twice, but it was 1 to 2 boxes. And we didn't see the results that I wanted to see, or that I was seeing on other people's before and afters and Instagrams. I'm going to shuffle. Sorry.
Oh, you're okay.
The sun is like hitting me now in that spot. So we've got to rotate. There we go.
Yeah. I had ordered, when I bought, I had only purchased once, and I just got 1 box of blue. And I was into, obviously a lot of us get like shiny object syndrome, but I thought that this was almost something that, like, not that I didn't already have peels on deck, but just the fact that it was kind of, a no downtime peel, right? Something that you could get in a series for, 4 to 6 weeks was something that was unheard of to me. And I was like, oh my God, this technology is amazing. Like, this brings something different to my room, right? It's not just like, oh, I'm getting something just to get it. Because also it's not fucking cheap to order either. I'm sorry, $500 a box was.
It was a bullet to bite, for sure.
Yeah, it's a little rough, especially like for anyone who maybe have just like first started out, who isn't, doesn't have a lot of money.
I justified the price with how much we could charge for the treatment.
Yes. And then once you're not seeing the results that other people are getting, then you're like, why the fuck should I charge this exorbitant amount of money for something that is getting just okay results with? Like,
yeah. And I think that's kind of where I decided, like, I had a very frank conversation with my team. I'm like, what results are we actually seeing? Have we seen these astounding before? Like, we never got the before and afters that I was after with this particular product. And not to say that it didn't work entirely. It did. We saw a reduction in redness. Maybe there were some smoothing of some fine lines and wrinkles, but not the type of results that I was seeing other estheticians posting online, which I know comparison is the thief of joy, and 100% it steals mine every day. But
yes,
but I still try to, okay, well, what did she do different? And there were a few things that it worked fantastic for. Like, I have this one client who had some really deep pitted scarring from an infection that she had, and we were able to raise that up using the TCA cross method with the gold. It was fantastic. I was able to reduce a ton of redness in one of my clients, and that was great, but it didn't target the pigment and the fine lines and wrinkles the way that I thought it would. I was also able to help a melasma client almost completely eliminate her surface pigmentation with this. So, like, it did work, just not the way that I wanted it to, at a price point that I was comfortable with moving forward. And then there were a lot of red flags with BioRe, as we both know,
Yes.
right? Like the overnight change of the percentage of the formula. Is it a 35? Is it a 30? They say it's a 30 now, but like, where's our verification of that? How long did it take for you to change the formula? Also, what are the batch numbers? Do I have a 35% sitting on my shelf, or do I have a 30% sitting on my shelf? And I could never get a straight answer from anybody. BioRe has declined to speak with me at this point, which is fine, whatever. I think it's their loss.
They're like,
well, I think it's really telling that you won't have an open and honest dialogue with somebody who's just wanting to ask questions. And I think that was one of the things that I really wanted to do, circling back, that I really wanted to do differently with my Scandalous page. And I think that's why I held off for so long after I changed the name, because I was like, I don't know, not necessarily what to talk about, but how to talk about it. Because I didn't want to be some internet sensation just glamorizing other people's videos by condescending them and like stitching things together and being like, they're wrong, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Like I've seen so much of that.
I was never a fan of those.
Like, I hate it because I'm like, why are you using someone else's content to, I mean, I get it. There's been a few videos I've seen where I've been like, oh God, why are we letting people even post this, let alone do this? But okay.
Yeah, I'm going to mind the business that pays me, and it's not that.
And so obviously this page isn't monetized. I'm not getting paid to do this. This is like something I'm doing in my free time just because I care so deeply about my industry. And I think that's the driving force behind what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. I do care. I've been in this industry for over 15 years at this point. Like, I care immensely. And I care that it makes me look bad, that there are so many uneducated estheticians who don't know this shit. And it took me 15 years, 15 Facebook groups, 5,000 questions from other people, and reading every answer I possibly could in order to get all of this information. It wasn't easily available. I found it through nooks and crannies of our industry, peeking behind the curtain when I could, when someone would give us a glimpse. And it's like, that's not fair. That's not fair to the new estheticians starting out who are being sold this dream of six-figure businesses and how easy it's going to be and how glamorous it is. And it's like, actually, you're probably going to be working 16-hour days, 7 days a week for about 4 years before you can take a day off. And even when you do, you're still going to be mad because you're not making money that day. Like, it's so hard to balance out all of those things. And then we graduate a class every 4 to 6 months of new estheticians who are just as excited about this career and who typically fail within the first year. That, like, the success rate of our industry is so abysmal. It makes me sick.
Yes, I 100% agree. I think even when I had gone to this last year of the Skin Games, they were saying, you know, at the award ceremony, really the average lifespan of a solo esthetician is about 3 years, which is it's insane. But we also don't have. It's like the lack of education, I feel, even starts all the way back from our school. I mean, they still aren't. They're nowhere where they need to be with teaching us what we need to know. Yes, we obviously want to pass our state boards and things, but there needs to be some additional things in there to help us feel more prepared, because not everybody is going to go straight from school to a corporate place. Like, there's also no help in trying to get any of the estheticians jobs anywhere. Like,
oh, you mean you didn't get job placement like you were promised? No one does. It makes me so mad.
Yes, and I did the thing that people say absolutely not to do, which is go solo straight out of school. But I just refused to be under the grasp of, like, anybody over me. I was like, I want to work for myself. I want to do all the education that is important to me. I don't want. Also, I just have a problem with authority. I think that's also something too. It's like, I don't want to fucking listen to anybody. So like, I will be my own boss, and I am so stubborn and just like resilient, and I'm dedicated, and I care so much about my queer community, who I service the most, and how important it is to have a space for us to have, services where we don't feel like unwanted or, talked about when you leave. And so I was like, fuck it. I'm opening my own space. I will do everything I can, learn everything I can that is important to me, and I will let that flourish. Like, there's not a plan B. It's only plan A.
I
And
think
so
that was
finding,
always my driver is that like I took out my loan and I was like, there's no plan. I was living on food stamps. I was a single mom. I took out a loan. I had a church pay my rent 2 months in a row when I first started my business because I didn't have the money for it. And like that was a brutal blow to my ego, let me tell you. But like it was also the death of my ego in the best way, because it was like there's nowhere to go but up from here. Like you can't fail because that's not an option. You have a child to provide for. And for me, my sons are a huge driving factor.
yes.
But also just the unwillingness to I think I'm very stubborn in that way where I'm like, no, I'll figure it out. I'm like, I'm a Virgo Enneagram 3 firstborn daughter. Like I have all the curses. You know?
Yeah.
Like there's no getting away from this drive and ambition, even if I wanted to. Like,
yeah.
So it's just the blessing and the curse of our industry. There's not enough jobs for placement after the fact where you could join a really great commission team or even like hourly commission, whatever. Let's not even call it that. You could join a team. And that's what I really strive to provide at my clinic is like a place that you can come after school and really learn skin. But I also think that's part of our problem is that we have to teach so much post education that like I bleed money when I'm training somebody because it takes them 6 months to truly be in clinic ready because of all of the education that goes into it. And then it takes another 6 months for them to get confident in the knowledge that they have. So it's like when people are like, oh, my 2-week training process, I'm like, 2 weeks?
Yeah, what?
That sounds dreamy. Like that, I could never do that. And I've tried and it doesn't work. So I think it doesn't work. And I'm not going to put myself on a pedestal. I have so many shortcomings. I am ADD, scatterbrained, and I like to sink or swim my team. And I'm like, okay, you got a full week of books. I put all the models on it. Good luck to you. Goodbye. And it's like, okay, that's not such a good plan. Let's revisit that one.
Yes.
But I think having a space where we can have conversations between both brands and estheticians and it's out in the open. It can't be behind a closed door Facebook group or a DM conversation or because those conversations are happening so frequently that it's like, well, he said, she said, I said, you said, they said that this is what happened. And I'm like, can we bring it to the source? Can we have a conversation about it? Because I want every side of a story all the time. Like I am not good with just hearing. Like if you were to be like, so I heard this thing, da 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 da, I'd be like, that's so crazy. I'm gonna go look it up. And not only am I gonna look it up, I'm going to ask questions to the person that you're talking about without naming you, without name dropping. I mean, that's really what I did with that ProCell interview is I had a source who gave me a bunch of information. I came up with my questions and I was like, let's talk about it. Here's what I've heard.
And that was also a fantastic live too. I was like, I couldn't even believe it was like with Dr. Schwartz too. I was like, wow.
I loved that live. It taught me a lot. I'm learning as I go with this entire platform and page.
As we do.
As we do, right? The ProCell live was really great. I feel like they talked in a lot of circles. That's just like my own opinion of the conversation that happened. We did get some answers, but I don't feel like I got direct answers to my questions. So I feel like the next time I do that, I'll be a little bit more better prepared. And my whole thing is like, I want to be investigative about the things that I'm talking about and the brands that I'm talking to. Similar to like Barbara Walters. Like, I just want the story. Give me, answer my questions. I'm going to ask them. I'm not going to be judgmental about it. I'm not judging any estheticians who still use BioRepeal. Do your thing. If it works for you and your clients, keep using it. If you don't have ethical boundaries that it bothers you, keep using it. For me, after everything came out and the results that I saw and the red flags that I have, for me, it's not a match anymore. That's okay. It doesn't have to be a non-match for every other esthetician. Do I think there should be some concerns with everybody? Yes. But if they have answers to those questions, if they were able to get answers and they're comfortable, then just let it be. We don't have to sit here gouging each other's eyes out, trying to instill our own values and morals into each other. That's not what our industry should be about. We don't all have to think the same.
Then we don't all have to be like cutting at each other's throats. Like, it just divides us when we should be like such a beautiful melting pot of a community. But I feel like with this, we're all over the place, and it shouldn't be like that. And I feel like it also doesn't help when higher ups of a brand don't want to talk. And I feel like that's why the ProCell Live was so cool, because you actually did get to talk with Dr. Schwartz. And I mean, like you said, there were a lot of, talking in circles a little bit. But I feel some of that might just be like to legally save some ass. There's probably like only so much.
I'm not always gonna get a straight answer.
Sure.
And I can appreciate that. I can accept that. I'm gonna walk inside and get while you continue talking, I'm gonna plug us in.
Yeah, and I think also what really was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back for me, as far as BioRepeal and the BioSkin Aesthetics team, was I have my own personal thoughts about the CEO and just interactions that I had at the Skin Games, and just personal things. But
let's
also
talk about that. What interaction?
Yeah, I had also, like you, previously, I had brought the peel on about 2 years ago. It was literally, I shit you not, maybe like a month or two before it started just exploding everywhere.
Okay.
I brought it on, and then I had, heard rumblings in the Facebook groups about how there had been lawsuits, brought about with the CEO in the past. And I tried to get on Google and try to find things, and I couldn't find a goddamn thing. So I was like, okay, are people just making up things? Is this like a personal vendetta against this person? Like, I had no idea, because I could not find anything on this man. And I was like, you know what? I'm using this peel. I'm seeing the results that I am seeing. I'm just going to go through my box, whatever. And some of my clients, I never used it on acne clients. I kind of saw the best results with clients that had like really drier skin. It really helped give them like an extra hydration boost that they really needed. And so when I used it on those clients, I was like, oh my God, this is so great. I love this. But yeah, the price point just wasn't there. So I was already kind of like on my way out. I was like, I'm not gonna repurchase this, because I'm just not, there is a disconnect in the price point for me and the results. I just wasn't feeling it. And then the Skin Games comes around, and BioSkin Aesthetics has their booth set up. All the vendors have their booths in the hotel. They're vending all weekend. They have an education day. There's a award ceremony. It's like a huge thing. So what kind of gave me the ick, and like I said, this is all just a personal thing. And at the awards ceremony, every year they do, I guess the Skin Games does like it's like a themed awards night. So everybody kind of dresses to the nines. They really
Mm-hmm.
go all out for the award ceremony. They like to call it like the Oscars of the skin world. So I believe the theme was, it was like old Hollywood glam. So, you know, everybody's like, there's people in like fur stoles and suits and all of these like fantastic outfits, right? And the award ceremony, it's really beautiful, and they have different people come up from different brands to announce award winners. So like for every award they have like different people, you know, they have somebody from Hale and Hush come up, or you know, whatever brand is there, they'll come up in there, they'll announce the winner for different categories, right? So one of the categories, the David, the CEO, was one of the presenters, along with someone else. I cannot remember for the life of me who was up there with them, but it was two of them that walked up to present an award. And he was not dressed in the theme, like at all, which I was just like, come on, man. Like, we're all here to like look
Mm-hmm.
good and just like
Okay,
all revel in this time.
pause for 1 second, because this hits on like one of my major, like venomous feelings, which is
Yeah.
like dress for the goddamn occasion. You're going to dinner,
Please.
you get dressed. You're going to an event, you get dressed. You're going to a wedding,
Yes.
you get dressed. Anytime I see like jeans or sweats, I'm just like,
He was in jeans. He was in
yeah.
jeans, light pink shoes, sneakers. Um, I forget, it was some kind of undershirt and like a light pink blazer, diamond stud earrings, and I was just like, "What the fuck?" I was just so it stuck out like a sore thumb,
Okay.
truly. It looked like he had been plucked from a club at the Jersey Shore.
Oh god.
Um, so he was still dressed, I guess, like nicely, but not for what the occasion was, right?
Totally.
So that was already just like such an eyesore to me. It was so off-putting. Um, and like I said, they were up there to present an award to somebody, and he had started going on about how one of the other professionals that were associated with the Skin Games had called him like Big Money Dave. And he was like, "Oh, that's going to be my new name." He's saying this all on stage. Like, yes. And I'm sitting there at the table, like, holy shit. And he was like, "Oh, I'm going to go by Big Money Dave now." And he was like, "I have 50 employees and I need to tell them to sell more." And I was just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, you're up here to present an award. I don't know if alcohol had been involved. I don't know what was going on, but that I was just like, ew, that was really gross to me. But I was like, you know what, whatever. Like, a lot of people there were getting pretty lit. You know, it's like a celebratory thing. But so I'm like,
Totally.
okay, this maybe he's just having a little off time, but something told me it wasn't. And then the next, I think it was the following day was the education day, where it was all day brands doing, you know, education classes like they would at, you know, any kind of conference, right? So I said, fuck it. I was like, I'm going to go to the bio repeal class, even though I've already had this peel for a long time. I work with it. I'm just really curious. I was like, surely David is going to be like teaching the class, right? Or be very present for it at least. So I get there early. I sit in the front row. I guess they have like a sign-in sheet for everybody to sign in, and then I think they were gonna give away like a free box of whatever to like somebody that was there. So they were using that sheet to like write names and choose somebody later on. So he's standing at the podium in front of me, and then I guess they had like a team there to help. So they had, I think, two representatives for them. Excuse me. So there was somebody that was doing like a demo on a team member, and then another rep was teaching the class. Like, David was not teaching anything. He was just like standing in the back the entire time, which I thought was really strange. Like, this is the product that you basically own and you're distributing out to all of us. Like, why aren't you at least kind of teaching something? Like, why is it just a rep that's like going through a slideshow, you know what I mean? Or like he wasn't even doing the demo on the person. And so I was like, this is a little odd. And but they did, I mean, the reps did great. It was I think for what they were showing, it was fine. But there were definitely still some red flags. Like they don't, in the presentation, it never said, they're like, yes, it comes from Italy, but like that's kind of where the line stops. It doesn't tell you who this is made by, like who are the people that are making this. Like a lot of, I guess, like bigger questions were left unanswered. But it seemed like the people that were in this class were people who had not brought on biorepeal, like didn't have it yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was kind of like their intro to it, right? But for somebody who had already had it, I'm like, there's so many unanswered questions here. So at the end, they wrap up and then they have kind of like a Q&A portion. And so when people were asking questions, David would try to answer a few, but I feel like the way that he spoke to other estheticians was just very condescending. And I was not a fan of the way that he spoke to anybody. During the class, it was really off-putting as well. And so I don't know, that those were just sometimes where I was like, I just don't, I was already having my qualms with it already. Yeah. And this was just kind of like pushing me along the edge of just like, this just like isn't a good fit for me, in my brand. And so that was kind of like my personal experience at the Skin Games with him. And I was just like, oop, I'm good. Like, this is not for me. But, following that with the Instagram page that came out, the biorepeal warning, I was like, oh shit, everything is about to pop off because, this peel has exploded over our industry. So everybody knows about it. Right. And seeing the way that some of the, the screenshots from some reps and everything, like people saying contradicting things. And like you said before, is it a 35% TCA peel? Is it a 30% TCA peel? We have no idea. I can't in good faith say I know what's in those vials because I don't. And then with them finding all the lawsuit and court documents, you read through and you see, holy shit, this guy was convicted with other people, 2011 and 2014 of smuggling in, fake pharmaceuticals and oncology drugs. So that doesn't make me feel good as a provider either. And it kind of grinded my gears a little bit, when everything was coming out about that page and people were looking over the court documents and then other people saying, oh, well, you can't judge somebody based off of what happened 10 years ago. Well, maybe you can't. I can. But I'm also judging about things that are happening previously, like right now in the company. Like, it's not just, oh, I found this court document from 10 years ago and this guy's a piece of shit. Like, I'm not going to use this. And if somebody feels that way, they're more inclined to, cut ties. That's fine. But for me, it's like, it's not just about these documents. It's everything leading up, while I'm using this peel, my personal experience with the CEO and my personal experience using the product on my clients. Like, it's multiple things. It's the disconnect in information coming from the company, the reps to us. Like I said, I can't in good faith say I know what's in that peel. So I'm not going to use it anymore because you want to believe what brands tell you, right? We should have a reason to believe them. They wouldn't lead us astray. But now I feel like it's even more, I don't even know the word, like it's even more important to do as most research that we can on these brands and products that we bring in, because I don't want to be using any kind of, I don't know, something where they say it's one thing and it turns out to not be that. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious to see if anyone is going to do a kind of like third-party test on the product, maybe on certain batch numbers, and see if there's a difference in acid percentages or what's actually in the peel. But I also think it's really telling, like you said, that they're not allowed to talk to you, but also that they won't even make a statement about anything is very telling as well. I find that companies who know what's going on, and if something comes out about them and they're open and willing to have conversations, says a lot more about the character of the people that run the brand, then it seems like a brand is hiding from something. Like why can't you have a conversation with somebody? It doesn't, like you said, it doesn't have to be nasty. It doesn't have to be pointing fingers. Like it's just about doing investigative research and having, professional conversations with somebody and just getting answers. It
Yeah.
shouldn't be this hard. And it
It
shouldn't be a
really
big
should
deal.
not be this hard. It shouldn't be this hard to get straight answers from a brand. I 100% agree with you. And I also agree with you that it's not just what happened 10 years ago. We're not looking at an isolated incident and going, oh,
Exactly.
that makes him XYZ type of a person, so I don't want to do business with that type of a person. It's not about that. It's about that coupled with the red flags that I experienced, you experienced, maybe some other people experienced, maybe not everybody, and that's okay. But for me,
Right.
it's the culmination of all those things that goes, I can't in good conscience continue to offer this to my clients when I don't ethically agree with the brand. Like if my brand values and your brand values don't line up, then we're not going to make good brand partners. And that's essentially what we are when we are carrying these products, right? We are a brand partner. We are a retail store. We are so many things in so many different ways, whether we're solo or have a full-blown clinic or not.
Yes.
That it can't just be an isolated incident. It has to be, do we align, and can I continue to align with this brand? Like DMK just released a new press release email to their accounts about it was June 18th. I'm pretty sure was the date that I got it. That's the date I posted about it anyway. I just looked at it recently, so that's how I know it sticks out in my brain. And it was about their no online sales, no virtual consults rules, which were in effect prior to 2020. And then they loosened things up. They in the original contract, you could have a password protected site. That was like their workaround for people who wanted to sell online. And they just came out and said, no more, can't even be behind a paywall. Password protected wall. It needs to be not online, period. And I knew that was going to piss some people off who had paid thousands of dollars, not a small chunk of change, to create these password protected websites that they could then give a password to clients or ex-clients or people who found them on Instagram. I don't know. And I'm sure that is playing a part in why they want that to be a no. And I understand it from the brand's perspective. They are trying to protect the integrity of their brand because, as you and I know, the markup on DMK products is not straight across the board. Yes, they have an MSRP, but you can go above that. You can go below that. You don't have to use their number because it's not available online. So you're not in competition with you and me and everyone else selling these products. And that's one of their biggest reasons, is because they want the people who should be making more on their products to be able to make more.
I love that.
That's their main reason. And I can't say that that's a bad thing. Like, to me, that's a great thing. And I've never sold their products online, so I've never had an issue with that. Do I still do virtual consults? And will I still continue to offer virtual consults? Absolutely. But do I do a ton of them? No, it's not my main source of income. Is it going to become my main source of income? Probably, but that's neither here nor there. But I carry other lines that I could retail online if I wanted to. I just think it is imperative that we keep these things in mind when we are making those initial brand partnerships. If your goal is to become Savannah Boda and sell online, then your brand partnerships need to align with that goal.
I'm sure we can probably, wrap up pretty quickly here, but I'm curious also to know, like, if there's somebody who is maybe wanting to go solo or open their own clinic, have other people underneath them, and they're, trying to figure out what brands to partner with, what would you say are kind of the most important things to look for as a provider to match yourself with a brand that you want to bring in or bring on?
Oh gosh, I think there's so many things. I actually helped on the brand resource guide from the Golden Experience guide.
Mhm.
I need to look that up. But I did help with that during the esthetician revolution. I'm not sure if you ever saw that or were a part of it, but it was kind of the first wave of this, actually. And that's when I began wanting to change my name from Laticia Kristine to the Scandalous Esthetician. Was kind of after that started. And that was all about recognizing that your brand partnerships really are so important to your business. And if you don't align ethically and morally and value-based wise, it's probably not a good partnership for you. And so that was kind of a trigger, I guess you could say, for not only my page, but also just how I thought about things and how I was processing things. And these are things that I've known for a really long time about myself, but I had never heard other people talk about them in the way that I felt about them. And so if I was going to give someone advice, especially going solo, number one, invest in your education and a mentor. I want to say education and a mentor, but you would have to be so careful which mentor you ended up getting. So,
You have to do so much vetting. Like,
you really do, because there's so many people who, I don't want to say will take advantage in the beginning, but
but
there are
they're
so
doing
many,
it for the money for sure. I feel
there's
like you
definitely
can.
people who are interested in it for the money. And I think there's also, everybody's a coach now, everybody's a mentor now, everybody's offering something now.
Buy my ebook or
Yeah. So
yeah,
so I'm gonna take that off the table. I'm gonna take that off the
yeah.
table. I'm gonna say, don't necessarily invest in a mentor, but I will say investing in coaching is the thing that 10x my business the fastest. So I'm not knocking coaching or self-development or mentors at all. I 100% believe that you do need that in order to leapfrog yourself and shave years off of your learning curve.
Yeah. Even trying to apprentice somewhere too is like super helpful if someone is able to
Yep,
have the time, to invest into that is really helpful as well.
I would agree. So aligning yourself with brands. Number one, don't just jump in because you feel like you have to. I realize that you're starting a room and you need product and you have to have all these things and and it gets very it's like the feeling is like this. It's like anxiety.
It's overwhelming.
And it's very overwhelming and you don't have direction. And so you're like, well, I worked with this brand before, so I'll just choose them. If you are just starting out, I want you to be so, so, so careful that you are not being indoctrinated by the brands that you are purchasing from. Because I'll be honest, 80% of the education for estheticians is not true education. It's indoctrination. You're being indoctrinated into the brand that you are buying from. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing if the indoctrination also is education and you're going to learn from it and you're going to get better and better. But I would just say, what are your values? If you're starting a business and you don't have your business values, and that can be separate from your personal values, you need to write those down. You need to start there. Then you need to know what are your, yes, and what are your ethical boundaries? What are things that are an absolute no for you? And what are things that you're willing to compromise on? For me, a brand selling direct to consumer is a really hard thing for me to get over. I don't like it. I don't want it. I don't want any part of it. But Skin Better has the best practice connect of any brand that I've seen. And I do carry Skin Better. For that reason, I was willing to compromise. But there are other brands out there that might have been a better fit for me. So you have to go through your list of non-negotiables and the things that you are willing to waver a little bit on, depending on what it is and why you're doing it. I think that's really important. The brand resource guide is on the Golden Experience guide. I swear that's what it's called. And Ageless Ashley, if you go to her profile on Instagram, it's linked. You'll find it. It's a free resource to any esthetician. A bunch of estheticians and myself got together during the acne revolution, the esthetician revolution, in order to put that together. And I think that's a really great resource for any new esthetician starting out. Because it's going to cover all of the things that you're asking. It's going to cover how to make ethical partnerships. It's going to cover what to look for, questions to ask brands when you are investigating them. I think go into any conversation open-minded, but also know what you need to learn.
Yep.
And if you don't know what you need to learn, ask somebody. Find an esthetician that you look up to on Instagram, slide into their DMs, be polite, say hello to them before, for the love of God, say hello before you say your ask. Hey, I've followed you for 2 seconds. Let's just say hello. But
say hi.
Just, like, I think I've listened to other podcasts where estheticians have said this before, and I didn't quite understand it. I didn't get it. I was like, that's weird. Why would they even say that? Like, no one ever does that. No, they do. They do. It's happened more frequently in the last 2 weeks than I could tell you, where people have slid into my DMs and they're like, what do you think about this? And I'm like, hey, it's nice to meet you.
Yeah.
So say hello and then give your ask. Hey, could I get 10 minutes of your time to ask you about this brand? Hey, I have a couple of questions. I see you're partnered with this brand. How's it going for you? Like, whatever it is, other estheticians are a lot kinder than we give ourselves credit for. I think we all get intimidated. We all get this like imposter syndrome. We see a follower count and we think, oh my God, that person's better than me.
Yeah.
And it's like, bitch, no, they're not. They are just human. Like, just like a celebrity trying to hide themselves in the grocery store. Like, these influencers and these aesthetic influencers and people who have large followings are just people.
Yeah,
they're just people who have built a following. And they're no cooler than you or I. They're no more prestigious. Like, I mean, yeah, they might have more accolades, more awards. They've been in it longer, whatever the thing is about them. They figured out social media. They know how to work the algorithm. Their reels do really well, like whatever it is. But like at the end of the day, they're still people with people problems. And they're probably not talking about it on Instagram. And so you have to remind yourself that what you are seeing is the 1% highlight reel of their life.
Yeah.
You're seeing maybe 1% of their entire life. And it is so glamorized and it is so beautiful and it's so, oh my God, they have so many clients and they're in the treatment room and da 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 da. And it's like, just take a deep breath and realize that you have every single potential possibility to become that if that's what you want. But also know that it comes with a grain of salt.
It sure does. And I think to add on to that too is for someone looking to, partner with brands, don't just partner with a brand because you see a social media influencer that works with them.
Yep.
Just because somebody uses face reality doesn't mean that you need to use face reality. Just as an example, right? Yep. Just because they're so big.
Or DMK, or Skin Better, or BioRepeal.
Yeah, like just because you see somebody who, has a high follower count, they are an aesthetic influencer, they have, their own clinic space. Just because they use a brand does not mean it's going to fit with what you are doing. So I think, being able to really have questions to reach out to brands and ask them is really important too. I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah. I think asking questions to your brand reps, if they don't give you an answer and they say they're going to find one, wait for them to circle back to you. If they don't, that's telling of how that relationship is going to go.
Yes.
That's another thing.
Yeah. You want a manager or representative to be responsive.
Right. Responsive and also responsible. Like, if I say I'm going to get you an answer, I want you to circle back with me and give me the answer that you told me you were going to get me.
Exactly.
And just ask a lot of questions. Ask so many questions. Ask how the technology works. Ask where the patents are. Ask for the numbers. Ask so many questions. And again, don't jump on the shiny object train. Just because Savannah bought a glacial doesn't mean everyone needs one. You know, like
exactly.
Just because XYZ person brought in bio repeal doesn't mean you need it too. Like, do your research. And if you don't know how to do research, if you're stuck, if you don't know where to start, send a DM. Send a DM to me, send a DM to Jenna, send a DM to somebody and just ask. Ask the questions that you're scared to ask, because I promise you the only way you're going to get better in this career field is if you stay incredibly curious and kind.
Yes, I completely agree. Well, I want to thank you again for coming on and giving almost an hour and a half of your time today to be able to talk about all this stuff. Where can the people find you online?
So I am on Instagram at scandalous.esthetician. You can find me on TikTok. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me those two places. And then my clinic's name is at nofilter.esthetics. Please don't follow me if you're an esthetician, but you can check it out.
And I will put everything in the show notes below so you guys can check her out. Please give her a follow. And with that, thank you so much again, Laticia, for coming on and speaking with me. This was fantastic. And I will see you guys next week for episode 6. Goodbye.